ho, Bronco Nation, you all must have been very good this year because Santa brought Boise State a great signing class as part of the early signing period. We are going to go through every single member of this signing class. We are going to look at highlight footage from their high school or junior college or college careers, depending on where they're coming from. We're going to analyze every single one of them, break down the tape. You'll get to do it with me because you'll watch the same tape that I do, and we are going to discuss this fantastic 2023 signing class, or the part that we've seen so far for Boise State, and what kind of impact they might be able to have on the team this year. There really isn't any other videos exactly like this one out there, so make sure you watch all the way to the end. And I worked really hard on this video, collecting all of these highlights, putting this video together for you, so I really appreciate a like and subscribe to really kind of give me a little bit of a Christmas present here. That's all I'm asking for Christmas this year, is a like and subscribe, Bronco Nation. So let's get right into it, because we have a lot to cover, and I'm trying not to take too much time to do it. So let's get right into it then. So just kind of some overall thoughts on this signing class. First off, I thought it was a really good class overall. You didn't have any 4 stars, 5-star type recruits coming, but you did have some really nice standouts that we'll talk about here, and you got a ton of 3-star recruits throughout. It was really kind of another solid collection of our kind of guys, which Andy Avalos has brought back that tradition of going after not just stats, not going just after athletes, but going after men of high character. And I think you see that as part of this class, especially when you see some of the other schools that also prioritize that were targeting our athletes this year as well. Also talking about states that got higher preference in this one, California and Texas. California has traditionally done well in the Boise State classes, 5 coming out of the state of California in this class, and then 6, the Texas pipeline continuing strong for Boise State. Obviously, some very good standout players on the Boise State team from Texas right now. I think they're trying to come up with a name for themselves. We'll see what they finally determine on that. But they're going to probably have to add a few names to that, because this is a good class, and some good names from Texas I think might be able to be make an impact on the field this year. So 6 guys from Texas, and then we got 1 guy from Idaho that we'll talk about as well. So let's get right into it. We'll go with the offense first. 22 members that we're going to go through, and just starting off here with the offense. Number 1 overall, or first player that we're going to look at anyway, is going to be the quarterback. I thought this was a great job. I will say this up front. Great job considering the fact that, you had Plow halfway through the season leaves the team, and then you have a new offensive coordinator come in, Dirk Cutter, who's not focused on recruiting, and then you have hire a new offensive coordinator right before the signing period actually takes place. But despite all that, Boise State was able to keep a lot of these great recruits, was able to bring in some top-level recruits as well. So considering all the turmoil for offensive coordinator this year, I thought this was a very nice offensive class. Like I said, to start off here with the first player that we're looking at, is going to be the quarterback, C.J. Tiller, 6'2", 190 pounds from California. He's a 3-star prospect, 40th in his position across the country, according to 24/7 Sports. But he had, as far as interests, California, San Diego State, and San Jose State were all taking looks at him. So Boise State beating out those 3 schools is a big one, obviously. Beating out Cal, that's big pickup for Boise State. His senior year, 2,154 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 131 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns as well. Boise State obviously lost Bachmeyer, so he's gone. Taylor Green is the starting quarterback. I mean, there's no quarterback controversy. Vidlac knew that, and he's gone. So, but the issue here is who's going to be that number 2. You look at the Boise State roster, you had a ton of guys coming in and competing last year for that number 2 slot, and now the guy who you thought was going to be your starter isn't there anymore, and the guy who was your number 2 is now your starter. Now you have that competition all over again. There's really no clear-cut starter there in the second string. You got Fulton, Maddox Matson, who a lot of people are excited about. Very definitely might have a good shot at becoming that solid second string, but I really think it's anybody's game. So this thing definitely something that C.J. Tiller could come in here and compete for right off the bat in that second string spot. Looking at the tape, I think he has a very strong, accurate arm. I really like his arm when I look at his play. I think that he throws well in the rollout, which if Boise State's offensive line issues are going to continue to be a thing, hopefully that's something that was able to be fixed in this recruiting cycle and will be fixed in the offseason. But if the offensive struggles continue to be an issue as far as the offensive line goes, being able to throw on the run, which I really thought he was throwing the short pass and the deep pass with accuracy on the run, on the rollout. And he was mobile if needed. He didn't look like, TJ Green out there. He didn't look like he was tearing up the field, going for 1,000-yard seasons, that kind of thing. But he definitely looked like if he needed to, he could escape for a few extra yards. And like I said, moving to create the pass, being able to throw on the run, big touch up here, big addition for Boise State, being able to add this quarterback who had some other schools from California going after him. Number 2 here is going to be Jean-Bray Dubar. I think this is probably one of the guys people are most excited for this class, for a good reason too. 6 foot, 190 pounds from Texas. 3-star, 38th in his position across the country. He was also being recruited by Colorado, Utah, La Tech, and I'll mention Abilene Christian. I had a friend who went there, so I just wanted to throw that name in there as well. But they were going after him, obviously choosing Boise State. He had 1,619 yards rushing, 19 touchdowns, 8.2 yards per carry average. He also added 38 receptions for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. So a very, very big play type of receiver. He's tied right now as far as height goes as being the tallest running back on the team, tied with Taylor Markham for tallest, and he's also 10 pounds heavier. We really don't have that solid third running back for Boise State. Noah did a great job, and I think that if he steps up and continues to play in that role, I think that he will do a good job, but we don't have another Halani, Genty level running back at that third position, which most teams don't. You don't usually go 3 deep and find a starting level running back at your third string on the roster, but I really think that Dubar, when you look at his tape, he's got a sharp first cut, he has great vision, he has great straight line speed, he almost seems to glide when he's on the field. I think he's very Genty-esque. I really think when you look at this player, you could have potentially another future starting running back here for Boise State. I think he might have the speed to come in right away and be able to contribute as a third string option on the field. And if Boise State's going to continue pressing the run game, we'll have to see what Bush Hamdan focuses on. But if they're going to continue to press that run game, that is going to be something that Boise State needs. You're not going to just need 2 backs. You're going to need a few backs in this offense, maybe even 3 that you can throw out there on occasion because your first 2 are taking a lot of snaps. Looking at the wide receiver, Jackson Greer, 5'11", 175 pounds from Florida. He was also a 3-star recruit. The Boise State wide receiver room really needs depth and explosiveness. And you have Eric McAllister, who I'm really excited about. You have Billy Bowens. He's a player who's really stepped up here towards the end. Caples, another great wide receiver. But unless those guys have a major offseason, we see something different. We haven't really seen anything yet this season to really say, okay, that's the next Khalil Shakir. That's the next Titus Young. That's the next Hightower, Cedric Wilson Jr., Matt Miller, Thomas Spurbeck. You could throw out so many names from the Boise State greats, and we just haven't really seen that yet on the roster. So there's definitely room for somebody to come in and be that explosive next great wide receiver. Is it going to be in this true freshman class? I doubt it's probably going to be somebody that's already on the roster right now, but there's definitely opportunity because right now, another issue that Bachmeier had in the passing game, we saw this with Taylor Green, is that even when he given time in the pocket, a lot of times wide receivers just weren't open. I think Taylor Green opened up more opportunities for his wide receivers because the defense had to cover him in the running game as an option, so it opened up more opportunities in the secondary. But it wasn't just the wide receivers beating their men and being able to get open. I still think we have an issue of consistency and consistent explosiveness across the wide receiver depth chart. So some guys coming in here like this, there's who might have an opportunity to compete. There's opportunities in the wide receiver room for sure. Very limited tape, appears to have good speed. Likely red shirt is probably what I would say for this guy, but definitely some opportunities in the wide receiver game. And moving on to talking about opportunities, somebody coming in who I think is going to have a lot of opportunities is wide receiver Chase Penry, 6'1", 185 pounds, transfer from University of Colorado. He is a 3-star. He was 8th in the state of Colorado when he was recruited by them. He has, in his 2 years at Colorado, he hasn't done anything incredible. He has 10 receptions, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion, and over 100 yards receiving there. But he hasn't done anything incredible. I think a big part of that is he's just been part of such an anemic offense there at Colorado. I mean, Colorado hasn't really done anything offensively in the time that he's been there anyway. Boise has a history of success with transfer wide receivers. Now, that is the JUCO route that they brought those guys in. Cedric Wilson Jr., John Hightower, we mentioned them earlier. They don't have such a high level of success or consistent success when bringing in Pac-12 transfers. Remembering, of course, Kelsey Young, and then recently Cyrus Bibilikio, who, again, I wish he'd stayed on the team. He hasn't found a home yet. I really think he would have had something to add as maybe that third back in the system. I really think that he could have continued to play well at Boise State. I would have loved to have seen him do that. But like I said, Boise State has a history of success with wide receivers coming in, but not necessarily with Pac-12 transfers coming in. Will this be different? Looking at the tape, personally, I'm excited. Like I said, it's an anemic Colorado offense, so you can't necessarily look at his stats and say, well, he didn't play because he wasn't the right guy. I think he can come in here and make a contribution right off the bat. He is a big play type of receiver. I definitely see some Matt Miller in him. He has strong hands, good speed, and adds some good height in the wide receiver room. Moving on to the tight ends, because this was a very tight end heavy focused class, and I like that, especially because you have to replace Hopper and Smith. That's going to be a big issue for this Boise State room because those guys were your leaders as far as tight ends go. So I think that one of these true freshmen coming in are going to have an opportunity to step up and be a contributor, and these are all receiving tight ends. All three of them Make sure I get that wording right. Yeah, all three of them definitely showed in their high school careers that they can be used even at the wideout position. Some of the guys we'll look out here lined up at the wideout position. All three of them are definitely guys who can come in and contribute. They're fast, they're big, and they can contribute in the receiving game. Looking first, tight end Caden Dawson, 6'4", 230 pounds, out of California. 3-star recruit, 61st in his position. Was also recruited by Nevada, San Diego State, San Jose State, and Oregon State. Interesting, Boise State winning that battle with Oregon State. And then he had 19 receptions for 227 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also played multiple in his senior year. He also played multiple other sports, including basketball and lacrosse. So just a pure athlete across the board. Like I said, we need to replace Smith and Hopper, and this is an opportunity for him to come in as a big guy, 6'4", 230 pounds. Not the biggest of the tight ends in the class, but a big guy who can come in. Looking at his tape, he reminds me a lot of Hopper. He does remind me a lot of Hopper, the way that he catches and runs with the ball. He's got great build. You know, he's not got quite enough speed and elusiveness to be a wide receiver, but for a tight end, I mean, like you said, what you see in this tape, they line him up at wideout and he runs routes as a wide receiver, and he plays and he makes long touchdown receptions. So, I mean, he plays with a lot of energy, and I think this is somebody who can come in and play at that tight end slot in the receiving game. But moving on to another guy who I think is also going to be a big part of that, you got tight end Oliver Fisher, 6'5", 225 pounds, out of Oregon, 3-star, 6th in the state, also recruited by Idaho, Eastern, and Eastern Washington. He played tight end and defensive end, which is actually what I did in high school. And looking at his tape, he's got a good receiver, and I think he looks great as a downfield blocker, which when you remember the tight end position, and Boise State has often been the school of receiving tight ends, but ultimately that position is all about blocking, being fundamentally a blocker first and receiver second. He definitely looks like he has that blocking ability, and that's emphasized in his tape. Looking at the tight end Matt Wagner, 6'4", 225 pounds, out of Texas. You look at players on this list of 3 tight ends that you want to go at as receivers-wise. You look at this list of tight ends and you want to find a guy who is a receiver. Well, this is a guy who has a lot of receiving yards, more than any of the other players on this list coming out of high school. He's a 3-star. We flipped him from North Texas, so that was a big win for Boise State. Not just the bowl game, but we also got a tight end with it. I do think the bowl win probably had a little bit something to do with it. Obviously, there's so much more that goes into recruiting, but you want to go to a program that wins. And honestly, if you're at a 50-50 toss-up, which again, I don't know if that was the case, but if you had a 50-50 toss-up and you have one program beat the other, I'd probably go with the winner. The bigger thing that I think flipped him to Boise State is that he saw the character and the culture on the field there, absolutely represented by North Texas, that they are a garbage trash program that every Boise State fan should root against from now until the end of time. And I hope that they go 0-12 in their first season in the American Athletic Conference next year, because their coach, their interim coach, yes, but he is bred out of that North Texas line. He is representing North Texas team. Absolutely disgraceful performance at the end of the game. And of course, that shouldn't surprise us based on how his players were performing during the game, targeting Dalmez when he was on their sideline, multiple hits on Dalmez as he's trying to get off the sideline. And of course, the late hit on Taylor Green then started a fight as the Boise State players came in and tried to rescue their quarterback out of that hostile environment. So I think when you see that, when you see such a garbage culture like that displayed on national TV for everyone to see, I think it makes it very clear who is the better program. Boise State, a lot of class in that game, not just as a winner, not just winning that game and on the field statistically like they needed to, but also coming out of it on the better side as far as character goes. And that is almost more important a lot of times in these games. I love the fact that Boise State was well represented, and it brought us over a flipped recruit here from North Texas. So welcome to the family, Wagner. He's listed as a tight end and a quarterback on his huddle. He's been recruited as a tight end here, but that's interesting, an athletic guy. And you'll have to see that. Boise State, a place that's full of trick plays. We saw a great one in the bowl game for the 2-point conversion. We really haven't seen a ton of throwbacks this year, going to the wide receiver, tight ends, and throwing it down the field. We thought we'd see it more with Riley Smith, a converted quarterback. We didn't. This is a guy, he's got some quarterback experience. If Bush Hamdan wants to mix that into the offense, maybe this is a guy who you can work that in with. It'd be interesting getting it to a tight end unless you lined him out wide, but it would be interesting, and he has that ability. But 592 yards receiving off of 47 receptions in high school on his senior year, and 5 touchdowns. Looking at his tape, great hands, very athletic, and a good great open field awareness once he gets the ball in his hands. All right, let's look at the offensive line here. We got 3 players. Offensive line, obviously a position that needs a lot of help. It's been a position that has looked better after Tim Plow left, and we instituted more of a triple running system with Halani, Genti, and Green all presenting a threat in the running game, but it is still a unit that needs work. I don't know if any of these three guys are necessarily going to come in and be that magic fix. I'm not even sure if any of these guys can come in and play right away, but the fact that Boise State is investing in their future here for the offensive line, something that Harsin didn't really do very well of, and is kind of why Boise State's in this spot. The fact that Andy Avalos and that the offensive recruiting staff is coming in and focusing and building up this offensive line for the future is fantastic. You got three great ads here. Offensive tackle Carson Rasmussen. And again, I apologize if I mess up any of these new players. Once you guys start making plays on the field and your names start getting called by announcers, we'll all be able to pronounce your names. But hopefully I'm not too far off the bat on most of these. 6'5", 298 pounds, out of Meridian, Idaho, so a local kid. 3 stars, 4th in the state. He was recruited by Idaho, Army, Air Force, and Iowa State University. You love seeing those recruits that are also targeted by the academy schools, especially when you got multiple academy schools coming after you, because I think that speaks a lot to your character. I mean, the Air Force and the Army and the Navy, the military is going to recruit men of high character and people who can pass background checks. So people of high character, they're also going to recruit hard studiers, academically minded individuals as well. But they're going to go after guys who are going to be able to work hard academically, physically, and have the right character. So this is a great pickup, I think. I'm talking about our kind of guys coming to this university for Boise State, representing not just statistically, but also through our character. And again, his offensive line needs to be shored up, so I like this investment in our future. Looking at the tape, he just plays with naked aggression. There's a lot of raw talent there. I think it's going to need to be developed, but you saw those hits there. This is a guy who goes out and plays aggressive, and you love to see that. Looking at the second offensive lineman here, offensive tackle Kyle Cox, 6'6", 270 pounds, out of Washington. He's a 3-star as well. Also recruited by Army and Air Force, also recruited by Idaho. So again, another similar focus there. You don't necessarily like seeing Idaho on there, but you can't help who you're recruited by, right? With Army and Air Force, we like seeing that. Looking at his tape, there's nothing super impressive that pops out, but it was good and consistent. Hey, he had nice technique. I think his tape highlights his effective participation in moving blocks. You had a lot of moving screens in there, which I think is why probably Air Force and Army were looking at him, because those schools use a lot of that. And Boise State is trying to be more creative in its run game. And so I like seeing that, someone who has that in their tape, showing that they are able to go and be part of a set scheme and not just pancake the guy in front of you. I think that shows a lot of good awareness there. So I'm excited for this player being added to Boise State's roster. Now looking at the last player here, last offensive lineman, Jason Steele, 6'4", 270 pounds, out of California. He is a 3-star recruit, recruited by Arizona State, Cal, Colorado, Nevada, San Diego State, and San Jose State. So a lot of big school names on there. And you just look at his tape, he just plays with a lot of consistent power, and I like to see that. So again, I don't know if any of these guys are going to come in and start right away. It's an offensive line that has opportunities. They definitely could. And it's an offensive line that, the last couple of years has dealt with injuries throughout the season. So you got to have that next man up mentality. But I like the investment in the future here. So looking at we got 3 players that are being identified as athletes. You could see them offensive, defensive, or maybe nowhere this year while they work their way out, which I think is kind of common with a lot of players who come in being able to play both offense and defense. And it takes a kind of a year before they figure out exactly where they're going to be situated. But looking right here, first player, Ty Bensfield, 6'2", 185 pounds, out of California, not ranked by 24/7 Sports. Colorado State, BYU, and Oregon State all targeting him as well. He's listed as wide receiver and a free safety, according to his huddle. He averaged 117 yards per game receiving, also 20 receiving touchdowns. But when you look at his top plays on huddle, he's highlighting his defensive skills, 91 tackles, 7 passes defended, and 4 interceptions. Looking at the tape, I think he hits with J.L. Skinner energy. I know that's a lot to say. That's a high praise, but you look at that tape, wow, he does remind me a lot of Skinner. Big guy, obviously, and there as a free safety. You look at the secondary, those guys, Skinner and Jones, are both gone. You got to find someone to come in and replace it. Wow, it would take a lot of trust to put a true freshman out there. And so maybe this is a build for the future. Like I said, a lot of times these athletes, you kind of come in and you give them a year to figure themselves out and to find out where they slot in best. And probably wide receiver is going to have more opportunities, because it doesn't necessarily take the best grasp of the playbook to get someone out on the field who can just run really fast. You give them the ball and you see where they go with it. But I think he hits with a lot of energy and quickness. It depends on how quickly he can pick up this playbook. He might be able to compete for a safety slot that is open. I mean, it's wide open. I mean, you really have a couple guys back there. I was going to talk about this a little bit later when I talk about the defense, but hey, I'll talk about it now. The secondary slot there, you're only dealing at safety-wise right now with Robinson, who I was very impressed with in the bowl game, and the play he's had throughout the season. Tubner, who I think Alexander Tubner, he's played with a lot of energy, but I just don't think he has that same next-level skill set. And then Shea Oladipo, who I think is great, but I think is going to end up at the nickel position, which is where I thought he was going to play this year anyway. Ended up playing that route when Jones got injured. I think he's going to end up at nickel. So, this is a wide open race, I think, for safety. Guy coming in here like Ty Bensfield, I think he could find an opportunity in this defense. And so I'm excited to see what he can present. Looking at the next couple of athletes on this list here real quick, we got Franklin Johnson, 5'10", 175 pounds out of Texas. Says 6 feet. Says he's 6 foot tall on his huddle. Being reported as 5'10" by 24/7 Sports and also KBBV. So, which one is it? I don't know. But, hey, somewhere between 5'10" and 6 foot. 3-star, 67th at his position. Colorado State, Nevada, UNLV, and Utah State all going after him as well. He was listed as a quarterback, corner, safety, and wide receiver. But interesting here, DeAndre Pierce, former defensive back for Boise State and part of the recruiting assistant staff, tweeted out some kind of celebration, congratulations statement for this player. So, hey, former secondary player, probably influenced in the recruiting of the secondary, and it's a secondary that needs some help. You could potentially find him there, especially, like I said, talked about that wide open safety race. Hey, looking at his tape, what he pinned at the top was his quarterback highlights. So the highlights that you're watching are his quarterback highlights, which I don't think that's where he's going to end up. I mean, like I said, it's kind of a wide open place for a second string quarterback. He could end up there. I think probably, and you don't have any highlights to show it, but I think probably there's more opportunity for him at wide receiver or secondary. I mean, he's not going to start at quarterback. Those spots have potentially some more opportunities for him to go out and play. He also kind of throws the ball a little weird. It kind of just comes out. It doesn't flutter, but it almost seems like it's on the edge of that. It doesn't seem to have necessarily the same power. So the other quarterback that we looked at in this class, and of course the quarterbacks that Boise State already has here, or at least the starting quarterback Boise State has here in Taylor Green. So I don't think he's going to compete for quarterback necessarily, but I mean, again, he seems to want that. He pinned that as his top highlight for Huddle. He said, everybody look at this. This is what I can do. So I think he might have an opportunity to push for that if he wants to, but I think he probably has better opportunities in the secondary or wide receiver positions. Looking at the last athlete here for Boise State, it's going to be Kai Tyler, 6'1", 165 pounds out of California. Also a 3-star recruit. You can hear that a lot in this video. Recruited by Army, Air Force, and Nevada. Wide receiver, defensive back listed on Huddle. Looking at his tape, I think he runs great routes with good speed. I think he has really clean hands. I'm more impressed with his wide receiver tape than I am with his defensive tape. On his defensive side, he's persistent. He definitely gets after it. He keeps going, even if he's stopped by the first guy. But I do think I'm more impressed by his wide receiver tape. And again, I think, like I talked about, there's more opportunities. There's going to be opportunities to compete for time in that wide receiver room. And so I definitely could see him potentially making an impact there, if not ending up redshirting and coming back next year and building for the future. All right. About halfway through the video here. Hopefully the second half won't be quite as long as the first half, but we're having a blast. Again, I was expecting this to be a little bit of a longer video, especially with all these highlights worked in. So let's talk about the defense here. Defensive lineman Michael Madria, 6'4", 255 pounds out of Texas. It is going to be a defensive line that's got to replace some key guys here in Matlock and through graduations. And then Craven's transfer, which is really weird. I don't think a lot of people expected that, but he's going to be transferring out of here. So Boise State's going to need to replace some guys on that defensive line. There could be some opportunities here. I mean, defensive line is kind of one of those positions. I'm not going to call it simple. I play defensive end, so I'm not going to call it simple there on the defensive line. When you talk about some of the more complex parts, especially when you talk about some offensive positions, or if you start talking about the secondary where you really need someone with a lot of awareness, there's opportunities to kind of just, hey, say, we're going to line you up out there and you're just going to run as fast as you can and go get the running back or the quarterback. You can do that for some true freshmen. So there might be some opportunities to come in here and get maybe not a starting role, which I definitely think there's some opportunity for some of these guys to work their way into that, but if not a starting role, at least to come in here and get some playing time on the defensive line. I definitely think you can potentially see some of these guys playing off the bat. Like I said, 6'4", 255 pounds. He had 78 tackles his senior year, 14 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks. When you look at his tape, I think he's an exciting prospect. He's got great burst and speed, and he ends up in the backfield a lot. I mean, like I said, 14 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. So was that 21 tackles in the backfield? This is a very exciting prospect. This is definitely someone I could see carving his way into a role here on this defensive line. Looking at the next defensive lineman here, Max Stiege. We've got 6'5", 255 pounds out of Germany. Again, so crossing the Atlantic. It's been a while since Boise State crossed the Atlantic. Geraldo Boldevine was one of my favorite wide receivers for Boise State. So I'm excited here for them to cross the Atlantic again and go over to Germany, get the number one recruit, number one prospect there in Germany. He was the captain of their Youth 19 national team. And he's being recruited also by Eastern Michigan and Houston. Look at his tape. I mean, he's got great technique. He's got great balance for his height. 6'5", 250 pounds, but he plays low into the ground. He's not getting knocked back by anybody, which is just great when you're talking about defensive linemen. I think that this is somebody who could come in here and make an impact. I talked about that a little bit with Madrid, but I really think that with Max Stiege, I'm excited. I'm very excited for the future of this prospect here. His height, his size excites me, but also just the technique that he plays with and how low he is to the ground when he comes in. You saw that quarterback try to juke him out and he wasn't able to because he was so low at playing on the balls of his feet. I really think that this is somebody who could come in here and be a prospect that Boise State's able to use right away. Looking at the edge here, D'Emmanuel Brown, 6'3", 230 pounds, out of Texas again. No stars, but I think he's a diamond in the rough. I really do think that Boise State's always been great at finding those guys that aren't heavily recruited by anybody else and brings them in and makes them stars. And I think that this is one of those guys. He was also looked at by Louisiana, Oregon State, Tulane. Boise State hasn't had a dominant edge presence here. I mean, we thought George Tarles was going to be that. I think he had that potential, but then he ended up getting injured. So Boise State's gone a couple of years here without really that dominant edge presence for Boise State. And obviously, we're losing a couple of guys there as well. And Banya announcing that he's transferring out. Boise State really kind of looking for that dominant edge presence again. He had 60 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 12 sacks. He's got great speed, good technique. He needs to work on his tackling. He's not bringing the guy to the ground on his first hit a lot of times, but he stays with him. I mean, he's dogged and determined. But I really think that this is something. He wore number 8 in high school. Remember, DeMarcus Lawrence wore number 8 when he was at Boise State as well. I'm not saying that this is a future DeMarcus Lawrence, but he is fast. He is so fast off the edge. I love the technique that he plays with. I think that this is somebody that is going to come in and see a potential to hit the field right away. I've said that with a couple of these guys, but I really think that when I circle Stiege and Brown here, I think both of these guys have the potential to come in and make an impact right away, especially when you look at positions there from the edge that don't have a lot of players stepping up to be that DeMarcus Lawrence, Jarrell Frazier, future Boise State all-time great at the outside linebacker, defensive end, edge, whatever you want to call it, role here for Boise State. But looking at the linebacker position is something that Boise State's definitely going to need to bring some new guys in. Linebacker spot is somewhere that Boise State, there's a lot of question marks there besides Schramm. So I think Boise State definitely needs to find some players to kind of step up and be the next Noah exciting level. I mean, Schramm was so reliable there, but I think Noah was really kind of the heart and soul there as far as your exciting level, big hard-nosed linebacker coming down. Schramm was just your amazing utility all-around player who was flying all over the field. Loved seeing him step up this year, but there's got to be a couple guys there at linebacker. It can't just be one. So Boise State really building some depth here in the linebacker recruiting. Love to see that out of Andy Oblos, former linebacker himself. 3-star recruit here, Chase Martin, 6'1", 205 pounds, out of California. He was also recruited by Central Michigan, Baylor, Washington State, Fresno State, and San Jose State. So a couple big name schools there going after this guy. 131 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 interceptions his senior year. Looking at his tape, he's very athletic. He plays both sides of the ball. He's a hard-hitting linebacker, and players don't get a lot of yards after he makes contact with them. So who knows? I mean, linebacker is kind of one of those a little bit more academic type of, a lot more field awareness needed positions. Very hard for a true freshman to come in and play well at that right away. But who knows here? This is a linebacker race that I think is wide open for who's going to be kind of the second there besides Schramm. All right, looking at the 5th recruit here on defense, we've got linebacker Wyatt and I'm going to mess this one up. Wyatt Milkovich. I don't think I was too far off. Maybe I was. Let me know in the comments. Wyatt Milkovich, 6'2", 225 pounds, out of Arizona. 3-star recruit, 21st in the state. Iowa State, Colorado University, Cal, and Army all going after him as well. He had an impressive senior year, 144 tackles, 20 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. When you look at this guy on tape, he's a very patient linebacker. He diagnoses the play and then explodes to the tackle. He's always running the action, and he's playing to the whistle, even if he seems like he's out of it early on, or if someone else has got the tackle and they miss it, he's coming and he's cleaning up, he's swarming to the ball. Again, I like that aggressiveness, and also we talked about kind of being a little bit more of a field awareness, academic level for the linebacker. He's showing that in this tape, and I'm excited for what he brings to the table. Cornerback Gabe Tahir, 6'1", 175 pounds, out of Washington. 3-star recruit, 18th in the state, also recruited by Eastern Washington, Colorado State, Army, and Air Force. Again, talking about those service academy schools and everything that entails. Secondaries really struggled this last season. I mean, that goes without saying. Statistically, they did great when you look at, ranking them against other teams across the country, but I've talked about that in my other videos of why that's very misleading, because Boise State didn't play a lot of, pass-heavy teams or teams with great quarterbacks. When they did, they were exposed, and Boise State secondary has really struggled. They're also going to have to replace a couple of big names back there in Biggers and Tyreek LaBeouf. So Boise State is really going to bring in some guys who can kind of contribute right away or develop some of the guys they already have on this team. So looking at the tape, he's hard-hitting, he's got great hands, he played wide receiver as well, and he's got good awareness. So I think this, 6'1", so he's on the kind of taller end there for corner. I'm excited for what he could bring to the table, but I'm going to talk about this next guy because I'm really excited about him. Cornerback Nick Hawthorne, 6'2". That's very tall for a cornerback. 6'2", 181 pounds, out of Texas. Not a ranked player as far as stars go, but we've talked about it in the past. That doesn't really matter. A lot of the best players for Boise State weren't really ranked or recruited by anybody. I mean, just look at Kellen Moore. But Utah State, Oregon State, Miami, Ohio, and Colorado State also went after this player. His senior year, he had 44 tackles, 10 passes defended, 4 interceptions, 2 tackles for loss. But he has really good hands. He's very hard to block when you're talking about out in the open field, being able to make tackles in space, which is something Boise State really struggled with at times throughout this season. And he hits you with a lot of speed, which, again, for a big, tall corner, also being able to have that speed side as well. Sometimes when you add a little bit of height, you lose a little bit of that quickness, but he definitely seems to keep that as well. So I'm really excited about bringing in a tall corner like this from the Boise State secondary. I think that's something that Boise State is going to gain a lot from. Maybe not this season. Maybe this is someone you develop a little bit, but going forward, I'm very excited about this recruit for Boise State. And then the cornerback, Amarian McCoy. Amarian, correct me again in the comments. McCoy, 6'1", 170 pounds, out of California. Not a ranked product here, a JUCO product. Actually out of Lansing College, which was featured on Netflix's Last Chance U. He was also looked at by Fresno State. 35 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, 2 pick sixes, which you'll see in the tape. But he's already been playing at the collegiate level. JUCO, but I mean, that's still a step up from high school. It's still collegiate level. So this is a guy coming in with a little bit step up on some of these other guys. He's been playing for a while at the collegiate level, 2 years there already with them. So he's already learned a lot. He already has a lot of experience that he brings to this roster. You talk about guys who can step up right away, and a secondary that definitely needs it. I think this is somebody who could definitely potentially do that. Looking at his tape, he's got great awareness. He's a solid tackler, and I really think this is somebody who could come in and contribute right away. But let's wrap up this video. Last player to look at here, someone who I definitely think is going to make an immediate impact, or have a potential to fight for one at least, is a safety, Titus Toller, 5'11", 180 pounds, transfer from Wisconsin. Originally a 3-star recruit and 41st at his position when he was brought into Wisconsin. 7 tackles, 1 pass defended, 1 interception in his 2 years there. So he hasn't really seen the field and had a major impact for them. But this is a hard-hitting defender. I think that he's got to be hungry. He wants to prove that ranking that he had, 41st his position in the nation. He really hasn't necessarily played up to that yet or had an opportunity to prove himself. We already talked about everything the safeties are dealing with as far as what the secondary is dealing with the lack of those next level talents there at some of the safety spots and some of the opportunities for a safety to come in here and play hard right away. I think if he's ready, I think if he's at all ready, I think he's going to have a chance to come in here. He's learned a lot there at the Power 5 school up there in Wisconsin. He comes in with a little bit more experience, a little bit more seniority. I think he comes in here, learns the playbook quickly, and is able to make an impact next season. If not in a starting role, we're definitely going to see him on the field. This is somebody I think that Boise State is bringing up to shore up that secondary and to contribute, I think, right away. So I think he'll definitely get a chance to at least fight for a starting position And if not, he'll definitely, I think, see playing time. Again, we talked about who he's got up there in front of him. Some good names there, like I said, especially Robinson and Oladipo. But I don't think Oladipo will be a threat because I think he's going to end up playing nickel. And I think that Robinson, I think he's a great player for Boise State. So I think he might be kind of your number one competition there. But you got to have a couple safeties. You're not just going to have one. You got to have your free safety and your strong safety. And so I think he can definitely come in here and potentially compete for that spot. So that's it. That's all the players. Thanks for sticking with me. Longer video for sure and a lot of highlights. But I hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, subscribe. Let me know who you're most excited for about this upcoming class. And like I said, please like and subscribe because there are going to be a ton of videos coming out during the off season looking at the 2023 season. This is actually the second video I've done in my 2023 season preview series because I also looked at the fact that George Kalani is coming back. We talk about all these new players coming back to Boise State, are coming to Boise State, but George Kalani is going to be coming back, which is so awesome, and I talked about that already in a video as well. So check that out in the link in this description. But thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue!